globally today, it's a staggering number. 40% of the food produced is wasted. And that trajectory is going up. If you think about it, 10 years ago, we were at 30%. A short 10 years, we could potentially be at 50%.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chain, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reed.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show. Liz, did you know that 40% of all food produced is actually wasted?
No, that seems like a really high number.
Liz, come on. What do you mean you don't know? Strela Biotech actually told us that. Don't you remember? What are you, busy with work or something?
I mean, my brain is just overwhelmed with all of these numbers. And yeah, I guess I'm just not remembering right. 40%? Jeez.
Yeah, 40% is a lot. And 10 years ago, it was 30%. And Liz, I think that's the key thing here is that we forget these things. We're doing so much. We're so busy. But today we have a really special guest, and we're so lucky to have Susan Flake, who is the Global Director of Food and Logistics at Avery Dennison, who will be joining us to talk through this. I mean, we really need to minimize food waste from farm to fork and along the supply chain. It's more critical today than it is ever. Without any further ado, Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Reed, for having me today. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, we're really interested in diving deeper into this. But before we do, most people know who Avery Dennison is. I mean, I remember using Avery labels way back in college and then using them again, just for Christmas cards and thank yous and those types of things. But you guys are so much more than that. You're a Fortune 500 multinational manufacturer and distributor of pressure-sensitive adhesive materials. That means a lot. It covers a lot of different things. You have apparel branding labels and tags. You do RFID inlays, that's radio frequency identification inlays, and specialty medical products. But can you tell us a little bit more about your role at Avery and how you and your brand are moving into traceability and food waste?
Sure. I'm the Global Director of Business Development for the Food and Logistics Division of Avery Dennison. My role today focuses really on helping brands and retailers alike, deliver quality to consumers. And how do we do that? We do that by enabling visibility throughout the supply chain. I've worked many years in the industry enabling inventory visibility, as well as the benefits it can bring to organizations, both economically and environmentally. So it goes far beyond, I have 5 of this or 4 of that. That's the data part. What's really exciting is the insights the data exposes and all the positive actions and the results that we can enable. And those are the things that I'm focused on.
So before we get into food waste, I just had a quick question. So Avery Dennison is a certified GS1 US Solution Partner. How long has Avery been partnering with GS1 US in this capacity? And what does it mean, to you to be a certified solution partner?
We actually have been very long-time partners and have had a long history with GS1. We were members of the original Grocery Product Code Council, which then later became the Uniform Code Council in 1972. This is all about getting barcodes on products in supermarkets and making it efficient for checkout and so forth. Coincidentally, the headquarters were out of Dayton, Ohio, which is really only a stone's throw away from our facilities in Miamisburg, Ohio. We were a founding member of the Uniform Code Council, and here's a fun fact. We actually have one of the original GS1 prefixes that was ever issued. So the benefits are numerous for being a member. It allows us to incorporate and support GS1 standards into our solutions and gives us the benefit to participate in many community activities, network with the organizations, participate in marketing opportunities, and really helps us to be educated on new standards that are in development or being adopted, hence enabling efficiency and interoperability. That ultimately is necessary to ensure a single source of truth and really creates that common language for systems and organizations around the world.
We're so happy to have that partnership with you, and it has been a long, strong one, and it truly is a partnership. I mean, you see what's happening in the world, you see what's happening with your clients, and you bring it back to industry. And, GS1 being a not-for-profit, net neutral organization, we're really about helping administrate and helping create a rising tide to lift all boats. But it takes everyone's influence and input into, what's happening in the systems. And that's hard to do when you're in a for-profit environment with competition. So just want to tip our hat to Avery Dennison and thank you for the partnership over the many years. And Susan for being on this show with us today. So let's get back to what we wanted to talk about today, which is food waste. How much food are we wasting today? What are we on track to wasting? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? Where are we and where are we going? Can you help level set us a little bit?
Sure, Reed. So globally today, it's a staggering number. 40% of the food produced is wasted. And that trajectory is going up. If you think about it, 10 years ago, we were at 30%. A short 10 years, we could potentially be at 50%. But lots of effort is going into reducing this. Food loss and waste impact the sustainability of our food systems. When food is lost or wasted, all of the resources that were used to produce this food, including our water, our land, our energy, even labor and capital go to waste. In addition, the disposal of food loss and waste in landfills leads to greenhouse gas emissions, contributing now to climate change. So food loss can also negatively impact food security and food availability and contribute to increasing cost of foods that we're seeing. Let's talk numbers. So what does that equate monetarily? It's $408 billion worth of food, roughly 2% of the U.S. GDP, with a greenhouse gas footprint equivalent to 4%. Okay, these aren't my numbers. These are ReFed, these are United Nations, these are World Wildlife Fund. This food waste, for the most part, for us, goes straight into landfills, incineration plants, or unfortunately down the drain, or even worse, simply left to rot in the fields. So businesses, government agencies, funders, and others are already making efforts to address this challenge, but a massive acceleration is needed to achieve national and international goals, of which have been set to reduce waste by 50% by the year 2030. These numbers are reported out on an annual basis. We know there is never room for food loss or food waste. And by reducing food loss and waste, we provide a very powerful means of strengthening sustainability within our own food systems and in turn improve the planet. So bottom line, realizing and maximizing the positive impacts of reducing food loss and waste requires good governance as well as collaboration and partnerships. We're all in this together.
So, I mean, it's crazy, those numbers, and not to harp on the negative, because I try to always go to the positive, and it sounds like, that goal of reducing waste by 50% by 2030 is awesome. Looking backwards, maybe we can learn from our mistakes. How does waste of that magnitude happen? Is it certain areas that have just long been inefficient along the supply chain? I mean, just trying to understand how we got here.
Yeah, so edible food is actually discarded at every point along the supply chain, so it's cumulative, okay? Food loss starts at the farm, whether it be overproduction, weather, pests, disease, labor challenges. Every point along supply chain today has labor challenges, market conditions, and this impacts from an economic standpoint. For example, if it's more expensive to transport than it is to harvest, unfortunately, the farmer has a hard decision to make and sometimes leaves it in the field, and unfortunately, it's plowed over. Food production facilities, they may have losses due to imperfections or quality. Transportation costs again. Manufacturing plants, just in the pure nature of what they do with food. So they trim off the skins, they reduce the fat, they make perfect cuts, etc. That all goes to waste, and it's just through the process itself. It also happens during transportation with inadequate or unreliable temperature control, weather conditions. So think of a truck going along the highways running into a snowstorm, and now he's stalled. Do we have the means to be able to proactively redirect him to a delivery spot that can take the product, and then still be able to have the shelf life that it's expected to have to the consumer? And then, food waste in the retail, it occurs for a number of reasons, including over ordering because we just don't know how much we have, cosmetics because it's not pretty enough, consumer confusion on date codes, what is used through or buy through or sell by or all of those versus expiration. Does that mean I can still use it on that date? Does that mean I still have 2 weeks? It's very confusing to the consumer. And then really a lack of visibility to true inventory levels. It happens at the home as well. I mean, we overbuy, there's spoilage, there's improper storage of product and so on. So it's cumulative.
Wow. You so quickly and so concisely painted a very clear picture, from the farm. There's storms that happen. You use the plow over example, and then you use transportation, getting caught. We've had some storms lately where things have happened. But you also brought up the consumer confusion on date codes. I know that we talk about that. My daughter the other day grabbed the milk out of the refrigerator and started shaking it. I'm like, it's not orange juice. What are you doing? She goes, Dad, it says shake well on the label right here. Now, we've been drinking a lot of almond milk lately, and sure enough, right on the side, shake well before use. It's like we all just go so fast through our days. And then there is the normal. I mean, I remember having a meltdown one day and just taking like $40 out of my pocket and turned to the family and I'm like, look, and I just took the money and just started throwing it in the garbage can. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, that's what happens when we buy food that we don't use. This is a $9, package of ground beef that we didn't use in time and it's gone bad and we can't eat it. So that's $9, and so we all feel that. This is just like, oh my gosh, like you really hit a nerve with me, but it's true. And some of it is just like, we all have shrinkage and natural attrition in business. So I don't think it's, when we say 40% and we might be moving to 50, it might not be as bad as we think, but we can always get a lot better. And I like where we're going with this. So I was long-winded there. I apologize. Kind of got on my soapbox there a little bit, Liz. But Susan, back to you. How are you seeing standards playing a role here or not playing a role? And where can standards fill in some gaps that you're seeing that we're not addressing today? I like the one about consumer confusion on date codes. That struck a nerve with me. But so maybe if you can comment on the standards aspect of it.
Yeah, so that standards are actually a leading actor here. So they're playing a key role. Let's take, for example, something simple like the GS1 128 label that's applied to the cases of food today. When we look at that label, it's really made up of a few key elements. It includes the GTIN. For those, that's the global trade identification number. So that identifies the product. And then typically a lot code if it's a food product. And manufacturers, when we think about it, produce products in batches. And this batch is assigned a unique series of numbers or characters, and this is called the lot code. Another important element of this label is the date code. And like we referenced, this can be a production date, a packing date, a sell-through date, a best by date, expiration, etc. In addition, other attributes can be part of this label as well. For instance, catch weight as an example. But with this information, the date code, the lot code, and the G10, you're now equipped to have insight into things that you wouldn't think about: shelf life, dwell time, rotation, FIFO. FIFO is a new term, actually. FIFO is first expired, first out. Traditionally, the industry looks at FIFO, first in, first out. So this is a new way of thinking of how we work through our inventory, and we work through it on a FIFO practice. Okay, I've seen many people get a new load, take everything out of the back room, put the new load in, and then put the old stuff in front of it. That's not FIFO. That's FIFO. One way, but it's not productive. And it comes to the forefront. So the list of benefits continues, all of which have a direct impact on reducing food waste. And by having this visibility and being proactive in our processes, as opposed to traditional reactive measures that are in place today.
So one of the questions that we're going to ask you at the end of this is something that blows your mind. But Susan, you just blew my mind with that first expired, first out. It's just a whole new way of thinking about how folks are doing their inventory. Pivoting a little, I know Avery is on the leading edge of much of this. Are there technologies that can be leveraged to alleviate some of this waste? I mean, Reed mentioned, in my forgetfulness, we spoke with Strela Biotech several months ago about how the fruit gases talk to each other and can then potentially eliminate that kind of waste. We hear a lot about that expansion of RFID and what that can help with in the long term and long run. What are your thoughts here?
So great transition, Liz. RFID is a key enabler to reducing food waste. So it all starts with inventory visibility. And we've been saying this for years, and it's very true. It started in the apparel industry when RFID has been adopted from then. And I can remember Dr. Hardgrave drawing a house and, inventory visibility as a foundation for which all the other benefits can be built upon. And that is so true. So traditional inventory collection today within the food industry, especially retail level, is running about 65% accuracy. And this is our food, okay? This is stuff we put into our bodies. With grocers typically taking a physical count 2 or 3 times a year, it's extremely labor intensive, often outsourced, challenging to prepare for, usually taking a couple days, marking on the outside of the boxes with the counts, etc., and challenging to get it right. C-stores, QSRs, restaurants, they traditionally do it by paper and pencil. They have a clipboard, they walk around, they write it down. It's slow, it's prone to human error. Is that an 8 or a 3, a 1 or a 7? They do spot checks. Is that the same box in behind the box in front? I don't know. Interruptions while they're taking inventory. Did I count that? Did I not count that? And then traditionally, they have to rekey all that information off the paper into some other system of record. So it goes to their main headquarters. And even if it's done accurately, it's not done to the detail. For instance, you don't know how many of lot 1, 2, 3 you have. You don't know how many cases are expiring tomorrow. Those kinds of insights, you don't have them. You have a count. You have 3 cases of something. So RFID changes all of that. You get a unique identity for every single case of product that's tagged, giving you that insight, helping you manage your inventory. It enables you a more accurate replenishment model back into your store. And you know that you have 3 cases you need to work through and sell today. so as not to let them go to waste, and having visibility into shelf life and dwell time, all with speed and accuracy. Remember, RFID doesn't require line of sight. It's able to capture hundreds of tags, in this case, cases, in minutes, not hours. So it saves labor, an extremely valuable commodity these days, along with a 99+% accuracy level, for which enables more informed decisions for the business.
Wow, I think a lot of times people think, I know I have, like RFID, how does that fit on food? But it fits on the packaging that the food is in, and it's the efficiencies. I mean, you correlate to a very simple, like I have terrible handwriting, but if I really want something important to go out, I take the time to type it up so that it can be clearly read. And clearly read not only by a human, but also by a computer, because we're moving more and more into automation. Whereas when you handwrite things, there's a lot of interpretation, and you gave some great examples, a 3 or an 8 or a 1 or a 7. I want to transition here just slightly, like everyone's like, oh, we have all this food waste and what's going on and what are we doing? You just gave a great example of, why we should be investing into some of these technologies. Now, I have 25 years of IT experience, working on cutting edge solutions and such. And what I always found is a lot of times these technologies are built looking for a problem. Some are built in response to problems, but most of all of them are really built with inside their own little vacuum. They're not seeing the big picture, right? And everything that's moving on. And while you were talking, it made me think, grocery and retail leverage standards, GS1 standards in particular, a lot. Food service, some of them do, some of them don't. But we're selling similar products in different formats here. So I'm just curious, as we start to transition, are there small incremental changes partners can make to make a big impact? Can you share on that a little bit?
Sure, Reed. So if we take a look at it, and you said it yourself, digitization. So if we just simply improve inventory accuracy and ordering practices, that's a simple first step. Optimize the product you have, not only to make sure that you're using it in a timely manner and leveraging that shelf life, but also making sure that it has the most margin and benefit to your organization as well. Practice good rotation, recycle. And a very simple one, count what you waste. Lots of points along the supply chain don't even measure what they waste and consider it just part of doing business, that's mind-blowing. Try to donate before composting and try to compost before landfill. So do kind of the steps that make sense. Set goals with real plans in place on how you'll achieve them. Lots of organizations set goals, but then, comes the aha moment. I don't know how to get there. Realize that small changes matter, that they add up over time, and the benefits are so powerful for us. It's all about reducing waste, protecting the environment, and boosting the bottom line. Those three will come out of all the little steps that you can take.
It makes you think too, like, how can I, as just one consumer with 3 other people in my house, start making these tiny changes? But what you just said kind of struck something. Donate, compost. What can we do? And then what can the bigger organizations do? And by then, you're reducing just by these little steps. You kind of spoke to it already, but if you think of farm all the way to us as consumers, what does that ideal state look like to you along that supply chain to really minimize food waste?
Yeah, I'll give a very simple answer. Start with giving things a digital voice and letting that digital voice tell its story along the supply chain from farm to consumer. Letting it give that insight and enable the practices that result in less waste and helping to ensure a better planet. It all is a benefit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that too. I love what you talked about, the digitization and practice good rotation, recycle, count what you waste, put real plans in place. It's just like anything else, right? When we look at what countries and what groups are really advancing, it's those that are really investing in education. And that's what it is. I mean, I run into a lot of companies and they're like, yeah, we have 6 barcodes on the back of this thing. And I'm like, why? Well, because there are six things. I'm like, well, did you ask? Because you might actually be able to consolidate that into one 2D barcode. Or if you start leveraging standards, they leverage those standards too, where you can have same information, different attributes are being used at different ways along the supply chain. I'll tell you, Susan, you've really invigorated my morning here with this conversation. But we're starting to run out of time, and I want to make sure that we get to our 2 closing questions, which are always just fun for us. And it's an opportunity for education. So I'll go first, but right now with your life, like your day-to-day life, like in the last week or month, the very present that we're in right now, what's the favorite technology that you're using, whether it's personal or professional?
So I'll answer that a little different. I'll answer it. There's a lot of cool things happening right now from a technology standpoint. And I think, I'll say instead of calling out one technology over another, I think my favorite thing right now is all the rapid innovation and change we're seeing. If we think about it, in just a few short years, we've had breakthroughs that under what we would say, quote, normal circumstances would have taken decades to change in order for us to stay competitive and get things done. Think of it, remote work, online shopping, connecting digitally, changes in the last mile, supply chain, customer expectations, it goes on. So the disruption we're going through right now has really led to mass transformation in an unparalleled speed. And that's exciting to me, is how fast we can adapt, how fast we can change, how fast we can innovate and initiate this process.
It's been crazy watching how quickly things are changing, evolving, and how we all then are expecting more and more. So it's going to hopefully continue to quickly change and evolve as we all do. So the last question that we have for you, and you already answered it for me. So what is blowing your mind right now? It really could be anything, like Reed said, personal, business. What is blowing your mind?
So it's really, and you actually asked one of the questions about it, how many simple things we can all do, from brand owners to consumers, from producers to retailers, and all the points between, to help reverse the trajectory of food waste and really make an impact for us and for our generations to come. I recently, saw a timeline on one of the websites of food waste. And if we go back in history, it really talked about how food waste started. And we think about it, there were very few leftovers, little waste, everything had a purpose, everything had a use. There was a lot more, products were a lot more scarce and they were precious. Time moved on, history changed, industrial revolution happened, and we had an abundance of products. They were easier to make, they were faster to market. That's really when waste started to happen and really became problematic and continued to what it is today. What I'm most hopeful about is that we are seeing a concerted effort, and it's a very, very prominent one, to a purposeful outcome and a focus back on the planet. There's a lot of good things happening right now that can steer us back in the right direction and help to lessen the impact of food waste. And think about it, really bring the planet back on track and come full circle back to those early days.
Yeah, you put it so eloquently. I mean, it's really what's happening. I mean, I remember growing up and my mother would say, you're having that last piece of bread. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the end piece. And like, yeah, well, you're eating that bread. And I see my kids just throw it out. The other big thing is, back in the day, I remember all the time, like, hey, you got to eat that bread. It's going to go bad. And I'm shocked at like, this bread hasn't gone bad. It's been in here for like 2 weeks and it hasn't gone bad. So those efficiencies kind of attribute to it as well. Susan, I can't thank you enough. And just to remind everyone, we've been talking with Susan Flake, Global Director of Food and Logistics at Avery Dennison. You dropped so much knowledge on us today with just some of the numbers and some of the examples. I just really appreciate you spending the time with us, educating us. And I'm really glad that a person like you is in the role that you're in and helping all of us globally, because you're having a big impact. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you both. Thanks for the opportunity, Liz and Reed. Very much appreciate.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.